Hi, thanks for tuning in to this video. We're in the middle of coding up a web application to implement the game Othello, or the generic name Reversi. In this sequence of 3 videos, we're going to implement the first half of our lobby concept, which we looked at a few videos prior to this. What we want to do is we want to implement some message passing behavior, as well as just clean up a few things here and there. My name is Professor J Patterson. All right, so we're going to break this up into 3 chunks, and our first chunk is going to have these components to it. We're going to do some housekeeping. We're going to make it so that the input field on our index.html page works when you hit enter. Our send chat field works when you hit enter as well, so you don't have to hit the buttons. We want to fix the case. We want to fix a special case when the username is empty in the lobby.html URL. We want to add the ability to get the chat room name from the lobby URL as well. And we have some little UI improvements we want to tackle. We want to add the user's name to the title bar. We want to fix chat messages so that they fade in. We want to fix chat input so that it gets cleared after you send a message. And we want to fix some join messages so that they fade in as well. All right, let's see if we can tackle this. So the first thing that we want to do is make the input field work when we hit enter in index.html. So let me show you the problem and then see if we can fix it. Adjust my microphone here, sorry. All right, so I'm going to go to Visual Studio Code. I've got my project up, and I'm actually going to run my server from within Visual Studio Code. So to do that, I'm going to highlight my server.js file, and I'm going to come down to the Run tab here, and I'm going to run this as a Node.js application. And so instead of running it in a terminal, I can see the output down here at the bottom in Visual Studio. That's just convenient, keeps everything in one place. Now what I'm going to do is go to some browsers that I have open and show you what the problem is that we're working with. We'll load up our entrance screen. And what we want to have happen is we want to be able to type in your name here and then hit enter and have it enter. Right now the enter button doesn't do anything. You have to hit the blue enter lobby button in order for this to work. All right, so what we have to do in order to make this happen is we have to add a little bit of JavaScript code to the index.html file. That's the file that we're looking at right now. All right, so let's go to Visual Studio Code. Let's go to our files. Let's go to index.html, and let's just take a look at what we've got. Right now, index.html has some stuff in the head here. We've got our required bootstrap boilerplate. We've got a little bit of styling here. We've got one function in our script that it takes care of, that does the work when you actually hit the button. We have our different components here, our rows and our columns, and then at the bottom we have some JavaScript that we're loading remotely. We're loading Bootstrap and we're loading jQuery. So the first thing that I want to do is I want to move this inline JavaScript to the bottom. So I want to take, let's see, where are we? Here we go. I want to take this script here, and I'm going to cut it, this go to lobby function, and I'm going to go down to the bottom and add it at the very end here. And then the next thing that I want to do is I want to access the jQuery library here. Oh, I already have jQuery, so great, we're good to go. All right, so now what I want to do is I want to add to this code that is going to access the name field, and we'll do the click button work when we hit enter on it. All right, so to do that, we're going to need to write up some code here, and we're going to add some jQuery here. And what we're going to do is we're going to use our jQuery selector, and we're going to select the name input element. This is the element in our document object model that we have provided the ID for, that we wrote the ID for, which is where we type things in. And what we're going to do is we're going to attach an event to it, and we're going to run a function anytime someone does a key press. And the function that we're going to run is going to accept that key press, and we're going to evaluate what that key press is. We'll take a look at it. We'll get it. The key is going to equal which key we're hitting. And then if it's the enter key, which happens to have the number of 13, then what we want to do is we want to execute the click button that's present on our Bootstrap button. And so that's going to have the So if we select it, we're going to select the tag button, and we're going to select that tag button that has the ID equal to lobby button. So there's one button that has that. This is how we select it with square brackets and say ID equals lobby button. No interior quotes, just the quotes on the outside. And what we want to do when we hit the enter button is we want to do the click function, whatever's attached to it. And then a little detail is we have to return false after that. Save that up, and let's see what's up. Oh, I put that outside of the JavaScript. So we need to put that inside the JavaScript and save it up. There we go. And then that should work. So let's check to see if it worked. So we're going to, this was a change in main.js on client side. I'm sorry, in index.html on client side. So we don't need to restart the server. We can use the existing one that's running. We can just go and we can do a hard reload to make sure that we refresh our content. And then we type in our username and we hit enter. And great, did what we wanted it to. It activated the click button by hitting enter. So that's kind of convenient. Okay, so that's great. First housekeeping item done. The next housekeeping item we want to do is do that same work on the lobby.html button. So once we're in the lobby.html button, if we type in a message here and we hit enter, it doesn't work either. And so we want to add that same kind of functionality to this particular button as well in lobby. So this is in a different file though. So let's go back to Visual Studio Code. And I'm going to grab this code that I just typed in and I'm going to copy it because it's going to be very similar. And I'm going to open lobby.html just to remind ourselves. Down at the bottom, we use main.js to hold our JavaScript for lobby.html. So now I'm going to open main.js. And I'm going to go to the very bottom of the file. I'm going to go to this portion of the code that gets activated once our entire file is loaded. And when we have completely loaded our file, I want to go ahead and do this attaching work of attaching the click event to hitting enter. Now the buttons and the fields in lobby.html have different names. We can look at them in lobby.html. Happen to know that the button that collects our chat is called the chat message field, capital M. And when we hit that button, we still look for the enter key, but the event that we want to trigger is the event that's not associated with the lobby button, but that's associated with the chat button. And we can save that, and that alters our main.js, so we should be able to check it and see if we're able to pull that off. So we go to lobby.js, and let's go back one. Wait for that to load, do a hard reload. Go ahead and type in a name, enter, and now if we type in a chat message and enter, it gets accepted. So that's great. That looks good. That's a lot easier than having to type and then mouse over and hit send. All right, that's our first two items. The next item we want to tackle is fixing a special case when the username is empty in our lobby.html. So for this, we're going to go to Visual Studio Code and look at main.js again, which is where we were. And the place that we need to adjust is at the very top. We have this function that pulls values off of our IRI, off of our URL, and then we come down here and we actually use it immediately by trying to get the username from the top, from our URL. There is a problem though, that because when we wrap it and decode URI, sometimes we can get back the string null, and so we want to add another case here that says that we have a problem if username is undefined, if username is null, or if, well, we can add it at the end, or if username triple equals the string null. So we'll put some quotes around it. So that's a special case. We just need to make sure we get that covered. And then the next item is very close to that. We want to add the ability to get the chat room name from the lobby.html as well. We're going to use this when we go into working with our board. So what we're going to do is right here on where I have let chat room equal lobby, we're going to go ahead and look to see if that's present in our URL as well. So I'm going to alter this so it says let chat room equal, and we're going to look for the URL parameter game underscore ID. And if it's not present, then we're going to go ahead and use a chat room. We want to use CHAT capital ROM, make sure it's capital here. And we want to let our chat room equal lobby in that case. Single quotes and double quotes don't matter. You can use them interchangeably as long as you use the same ones for a given string. Okay, so what this is doing is it's looking for game ID in the URL, and if it's not there, it'll use lobby as a default. And so that's going to be helpful in the future. Let's save that up and take a look at our chat room setup items. All right, that covers all of our housekeeping tasks. Now let's fix some of our user interface components. I noticed when people were turning in their assignments for the class that's associated with this video, that it was kind of hard to tell when we had multiple browsers open which browser belonged to which user. So let's add the user's name to the title bar. All right, so the title bar is located in lobby.html. So let's go to Visual Studio and open up lobby.html. We can go to the top and we can see where lobby is written here. And in order to fix this, we're going to have a hook in order to be able to change lobby from within our JavaScript code. So we're going to just go ahead and give this an ID. We'll say ID equals lobby title. And then that gives us the ability to find it from our JavaScript. So now let's go to main.js and let's go to the bottom after we've loaded up our document. And in particular, after we've gotten the username, we have that ready to go from the top of our file. And let's go ahead and update what our lobby title says. And so we want to access it by using the selector hashtag lobby title, which we just created. And what we want to do is we want to replace the HTML that's present there with the username that we've just figured out. And we want to add that to, and I'm going to use double quotes and then a single quote and an S, so it looks like it's possessive. And then we'll say lobby. So it'll say like Don's lobby, for example. All right, we can save that. Looks good. This is in main.js, so we don't have to restart our server. We can go back to our code. Let's go back one. Do a hard reload. Hit Don. Enter. And you can see that we get Don's lobby at the top. That's just kind of nice. All right, second item. Now what we'd like to do is fix chat messages so that they fade in. Right now, when chat messages arrive, they are just dropped in really quickly, and it's a little harsh. So what we'd like to do is use some of that jQuery animation in order to allow our chat messages to arrive a little more gently. All right, the place where we write our chat messages is in main.js. We receive them as a message from our server. So let's go to Visual Studio Code and look at main.js. And we're going to go to the message handling function that says send chat message response. Right here, down here is where we add the new message that's arrived in. We say what the username is and we say what the message is. We construct a little HTML that we add to our document. This is fine. We're just going to change this a little bit so that we can fade it in. What we'll do is we'll call this our new HTML so that we just have a reference to it. And then we're going to create a new node that we're going to add to our document object model. And we're going to create that by using our jQuery operator and passing it in our new HTML. And when we do this, what jQuery does is it returns a new object that we can add to our tree. But before we add it to our tree, we want to hide it. We want to make it so that it is not visible. So we'll call an action on that. And that'll make it so that when we now add our new node to the place where we added our previous message before, just straight, when we add it, it's going to be hidden. And so right after we add it, we're going to go ahead and show it. And we're going to use a jQuery animation for that and fade, and we'll do it over like 500 seconds maybe. That sounds good. All right, now this uses jQuery UI, so let's go over to lobby.html and make sure we load jQuery UI. It's down at the bottom. So we have Bootstrap loading, we have jQuery loading, we don't have jQuery UI loading. So we're going to need that. How are we going to get that? We can get that from Google API. See, I don't have, let's see, I have that handy from other code, but because we're working with it right now together, let's go ahead and grab it the way you would grab it if you didn't have it ready to go. So we're going to do that by going to, what should we do? Should we get it from Google? Let's get it from Google. So I'm going to go to Google hosted libraries. and I'm looking for jQuery UI. That should be over here on the side. There it is. I'll get, what do we got? jQuery UI. It's all ready to go. Oh no, it's not ready to go because it doesn't have the security hash. So I'm going to grab the file right there. I'm going to copy it. I'm going to go to srihash.org. I'm going to drop it in there and hash it. And then I'm going to copy that code that I get back, take it back to my lobby.html, and I'm going to add it down here. Now I'm going to add it in a particular place. I've got Bootstrap, then I have jQuery, and right after jQuery, I'm going to add the jQuery UI script. Then it's going to be followed by socket.io, and then the last bit will be my code. These run in order, so it's important that you get the order right to a certain degree. Mostly you just have to have the jQuery UI before main.js. Okay, so that's going to enable our jQuery UI to be available to our code. Now if we go back to our code, we've done our work with our chat messages, we have access to this fade function, we should be all set. So let's see if it works. Go back to our lobby. Let me close out my other windows. Go back here. Let's empty cache and reload. This is a chat message scenario, so let's go ahead and get another window open. Let's have Don join on the left and Patterson join on the right. And then we'll send a message. And what we're looking for is we're looking to see if it fades in. Nice. Just a subtle little fade in effect, but it's a little bit better than the harsh effect that we had before. All right, so we fixed our chat messages so that they fade in. Let's fix our chat message so that after we type something, it's cleared. Right here, I hit hello world and I sent it, but it remains present here in the input bar. That's kind of messy. So let's go to where we send our message and let's just clear it. So we're going to go to Visual Studio Code and we're going to go to our send chat message response. And let's see, after we, that's our response. So when we send our chat message, this is the function that gets called when we hit send. We come down here and we create a request and we send a request. Here's where we get the message from our document object model. And so after we send our request to our server, what we're going to do is we're going to do that same work. We're going to select the chat message, and rather than getting the value, we're going to set it equal to a pair of double quotes, which is just an empty string. And that's it. That'll clear it after we send it. So let's go back and double check it. We can empty cache and reload. Type hello world. There we go. You can see it clears it right after it sends it. Perfect. All right, now let's fix our chat inputs. We just did that. Now let's fix our join messages so that they fade in. So if we look right here, when someone joins, these messages arrive in kind of a harsh manner. So let's fix that up and see if we can make that come in a little bit smoother. Okay, to do that, we're going to go to main.js in Visual Studio Code, and we're going to find the place where we handle our join messages. So we're going to find our join room response. Here we are. Here is where we create the message that gets put into our document object model, and here is where we add it to our document object model. And we want to do kind of the same thing we did before, where we do it in two steps. First, we create some HTML. Then we will create a new node that is equal to the node version of that HTML. So we'll create a node from that. And then we're going to hide it so that when we add it, it's not visible. Then we're going to go ahead and add that new node to our document object model where we just put the raw HTML before. And then as soon as it's done, we'll say new node.show, and we'll use the fade effect, and we'll have it take half a second, 500 milliseconds. Save that. And if we go to our chat message, go back one, we do a hard reload, go to our other one, go back, and do a hard reload. We'll have Don join here. And then what I want to do is I'm going to hit enter here on the count of 3, and I want to look over on the left and see that enter message fade in. So on the count of 3, 1, 2, 3. And it didn't work. And what I'm looking at down here is that I have some kind of a typo. It says node is not defined, and I'm looking at main.js line 43. I must have a typo. Here's main.js, line 43, and you can see I typed in node here instead of new node. Muscle memory failing me. All right, so let's try that demo again. We'll go back one, and we'll go back one. We'll hard reload, and we will hard reload. Type Don in here. And over here, we'll type Patterson, and on the count of 3, we'll hit it and see if it fades in. 1, 2, 3. Pretty good. A nice fade in effect. That's a lot nicer than just dropping it in suddenly. Okay, so that's everything for this first of 3 videos that we want to address. Some housekeeping and some little UI improvements. We'll break the video here and we'll pick up for the next chunk in a moment. Thanks for your attention. Okay, I realized I had a little bit of a typo. Forgot to make one edit. At the top of main.js, when we were fixing our chat room, I had my if statement here for username was okay, but I didn't update my if statement here for the chat room when I cut and pasted it. Notice that later. So let's come on over here and fix this up. Save it, and then we're good to go.